Hello everyone, I was putting together a video on Duke Nukem 3D's 5th generation console ports, and it dawned on me, I've got a lot to say about the Saturn version, so I've decided to make a video about it. Judging by the overwhelmingly positive reputation this game has, I think I may upset a few people with this one. But first, for me to explain what exactly I feel is wrong with this version, I think it might be fair to give a brief history of the game on the Sega Saturn. The Saturn would receive its version of Duke 3D courtesy of Lobotomy Software. It's a unique version of the game that is not based on Ken Silverman's build engine. Instead, this is running on Lobotomy's own game engine, called Slave Driver. It's the same engine they used to create their other Saturn games, Quake and Power Slave, otherwise known as Exhumed. According to this interview with Lobotomy, conducted by official Sega Saturn magazine in early 1997, a different company had originally been contracted by Sega to produce Duke 3D for Saturn. Unfortunately for this unnamed company, they were unable to get the build engine running on the system at an acceptable frame rate, and was subsequently dropped by Sega. They then go on to state that Sega were interested in working with Lobotomy, not only because they already had their own 3D engine up and running on the Saturn, but also because they had previous experience with the build engine. So essentially, the Slave Driver engine was used out of necessity, as the build engine was deemed unable to run on the Saturn's hardware. To Sega, Lobotomy were an already proven developer with a great 3D engine that worked well on the Saturn. It must be said the guys at Lobotomy really were technically brilliant, and they were able to get a lot out of the difficult Sega hardware. The Slave Driver engine can even do some things that the build engine can't. Namely, it allows for some cool dynamic lighting effects. It's also fully 3D, so there's no weird warping when you look up or down, which is nice. The game also runs at an acceptable frame rate, much better than what the PlayStation port would achieve, but that's a story for another day. So, on the surface this seems like a really strong conversion, and you could argue that it is. However, in my opinion, I'd say there are a multitude of issues preventing this game from being the best of the 5th generation console ports. Let's take a closer look at the game and find out why. The first thing you'll notice when booting into the game is how it looks. At first glance, mine is facing a slightly different direction. I'd say that graphically it looks pretty good, but once you start to move, you'll instantly notice the difference. The camera tilts weirdly when you turn. It feels like Duke's drunk or something. Also, you slide around, often slipping off platforms. The controls just feel off. To help maintain a reasonable frame rate, levels have also seen major cuts. Ceilings have been lowered, some areas are simplified, some are cut altogether. I understand why this stuff has to be done, but it's the only console port that has been simplified to such a degree. To top it off, all trains have been removed, and revolving objects such as these gears have been made static. This might sound strange, but the original game had a wide range of doors you could use. This game only has one type. In some instances, doors have even been removed entirely. Look at this. I hope you didn't want any privacy while you're taking a shit. Jeez. You can't manually duck in this game either. Instead, you automatically duck when nearing a crawl space. Unfortunately, this also seems to happen when you're near a wall, so expect to randomly duck in a firefight. The enemies also have weird AI, and they will rush you where they wouldn't in the original. Enemies' HP also seems to be different, sometimes taking more or less shots to kill than it should. And is it just me, or are the animations too slow? Something doesn't feel right. Hold on, I need to check this. Okay, so no, it's not just me. When put side by side, we can see that the animations quickly fall out of sync with each other. I feel like I should also mention that some of Duke's one-liners have also been cut, so expect to hear far less of his personality. The ones that are here also seem really low quality to me. Have a listen.
Yeah, piece of cake. Yeah, piece of cake.
Damn, I'm looking good.
Damn, I'm looking good.
What do you think? In total, the Saturn version appears to have 30 levels. However, to lessen the load on the console, some stages have been chopped in half and presented as 2. So really it's more like 25 levels. Bearing in mind that the PC version had around 40 levels at this point in time, it's a bit disappointing to not see more of them on the Saturn. In fact, the Saturn version has the least amount of levels of any console port. Diving deeper into this, the secret levels Spin Cycle, Teardrops, Lunatic Fringe, and Freeway are all absent here. It attempts to make up for this with an exclusive secret level called Urea 51, which is essentially an auto-scroller. For the most part, you're carried through the level by conveyor belts and cranes. It's incredibly short and it has no secrets. You even end the level by diving into a giant toilet. Pretty much sums up how I feel about this level, to be honest.
Get that crap out of here.
The music in Saturn Duke has been remastered, and personally I think it sounds pretty good. In fact, all the music used in this video is pulled from the Saturn version, but I'll do a small side-by-side so you can make your own mind up. But here's the thing, there are only around 13 tracks in the game. Now, my maths isn't great, but even I can see that with 13 tracks and 25 levels that some music is going to be reused. It gets worse. There are no Episode 4 levels in the game, but there are music tracks from Episode 4, like Warehouse and Preparation D. Why do this? Why not just use music for the levels that you do have? Honestly, this makes no sense to me. Reusing the music just feels so weird and out of place. Urea 51 also gets its own unique license track called Desolation Sound by a band called Madcap, which I'm sure has its fans. Here's a snippet. What do you think? Okay, so the Saturn version has its flaws, but it's not all bad. The game features multiplayer where you can co-op or even duke it out head-to-head online, provided you have a Sega Netlink. Apparently, this still works today, but unfortunately I'm not able to try this. Honestly, I'd much rather a split-screen mode. But I must say, it's quite impressive that a console game from 1997 has network play. There's also a minigame included on the disc called Death Tank Zwei. Looks as though Madcap also did the theme tune for this one. The game is similar to Worms or Scorched Earth. Each player controls a tank and tries to kill the other players first. It's a neat little extra. To unlock it, all you have to do is have save data for Exhumed or Quake on your console, or alternatively by destroying all toilets in the game.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Thankfully, some smart people have managed to extract the minigame from the game's files, and it's now playable as a standalone. Hey guys. Now I know I've been bashing this game for essentially the entire video, but for what it's worth I do actually really like it. I find it incredibly interesting. And if you were to put yourself in the shoes of a kid in the 90s, then this would definitely have been more than acceptable. But these issues do exist and I thought it would be fun to point them out. Ultimately, I guess my issue with the game can be boiled down to one thing. This isn't actually Duke Nukem 3D.
Frickin' imposter.
Every level here has been recreated in this new engine. It's exhumed with a Duke 3D skin. Thankfully, Exhumed is a great game in itself, and despite all the issues I have with this, I still think it's a blast to play, and will occasionally bust it out on my Saturn. But it is missing a lot of the little touches that made Duke Nukem 3D feel so special and ahead of its time. You just can't beat the build engine, but hats off to them for trying. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you like this content. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.
I had eggs for breakfast. Your mom had sausage.